Chapter 1, Denied and Defiant. The clinic doors hissed shut in Elias Voss's face. Your petition for medical assistance has been denied. The automated voice from the intercom lacked even the pretense of empathy. Behind him, Cries trembled, his massive frame hunched against the cold alloy floor. The once pristine white fur of the Verkai was now riddled with grotesque, pulsating barnacles, their fleshy tendrils burrowing deeper into his skin. Each one glowed a sickly blue, feeding off his body like parasites feasting on a dying beast. The infection had spread faster than Elias had anticipated. Elias turned back to the intercom, his jaw clenched so hard it ached. You don't understand. He's in agony. You have the technology, just give me the damn serum. The Galactic Concordium does not allocate medical resources to non-priority cases. Your request has been deemed inefficient. Inefficient. The word hit like a fist to the gut. He had heard it before. When the Concordium let entire colonies rot because it wasn't resource efficient to intervene. When soldiers left civilians behind because a rescue mission carried low strategic value. And now, they were saying it about Cries. A deep, shuddering breath rattled out of the alien wolf's lungs. A sound Elias had never heard from him before. Weakness. Suffering. Something inside Elias snapped. He slammed his fist against the intercom panel. Listen to me, you cold-blooded bastards. He's not just some animal. He's my friend. If you won't help him, then get out of my way. No response. Just silence. Cries stirred, his milky white eyes meeting Elias's with unfocused exhaustion. They will not change their minds, the Verkai's voice whispered into his thoughts. You know this. Elias exhaled sharply. Yeah, he knew. The Concordium's laws were absolute. Logic-driven. Unfeeling. The aliens behind that wall wouldn't lose a moment of sleep over letting Cries die. But Elias wasn't wired like that. He turned on his heel, gripping the rifle slung across his back. We're leaving. Cries struggled to rise, his powerful limbs shaking as he followed. The barnacles were sapping his strength, their tendrils locking into his nervous system like viral roots. He wouldn't last much longer. Elias needed a plan. The nanite serum, the only known treatment, was locked behind layers of bureaucratic red tape. Off-limits to low-value life forms. But there was another way to get it. A way that didn't involve asking nicely. The undermarket. It was dangerous, crawling with criminals, black market traders, and desperate souls willing to trade their own organs for a ticket off-world. But it was the only place he might find someone willing to help. They pushed through the neon-lit streets of Sector 9, where the city's untouchables lived, aliens deemed unworthy by the Concordium. Twisted figures huddled in the shadows, their bodies riddled with mutations from untreated diseases. The air was thick with the scent of decay and ozone. Elias kept his hand near his sidearm. If the barnacles didn't kill Cries, something else here might. A set of red cybernetic eyes glowed from a side alley. Dr. Yelrin. Once a respected xenobiologist, now a disgraced surgeon for hire. Elias had done his homework. If anyone had access to restricted medical tech, it was her. He stepped into the dim glow of a malfunctioning streetlight. Yelrin. The skeletal alien woman turned, her elongated fingers flicking over a holographic tablet. Voss. Didn't expect to see you groveling for favors. Elias nodded toward Cries. I need the nanite serum. Now. Yelrin's metallic eyes flickered, scanning the suffering Verkai. That's black tier tech. Even if I had it, which I don't, it would cost more than your ship. Elias's patience was running thin. Don't play games with me, Yelrin. You still have contacts in the Concordium's medical division. I need a name, a location, anything. She tilted her head, considering. Then she smirked. There is one place. The Galactic Medical Vault. Elias tensed. That wasn't just a hospital supply depot, it was a fortress. Guarded by drones, biometric locks, and an entire squad of Concordium enforcers. Stealing from it was suicide. Forget it, Yelrin added. You don't have the firepower for a job like that. Elias glanced at Cries, whose breathing had grown shallower. Failure wasn't an option. You let me worry about that, he said coldly. Just get me the schematics. Yelrin gave a short, humorless laugh. You're insane. Elias didn't argue. They returned to the abandoned docking bay Elias called home. Cries collapsed onto a metal platform, his body convulsing as the barnacles pulsed in eerie synchronization. The infection was accelerating. Elias knelt beside him, pressing a hand to the thick fur of his neck. I won't let them take you. Cries' eyes half-lidded. It is not your fight, Elias. Elias clenched his jaw. Yeah? Well, I made it my fight the day I pulled you out of that slave pit on Velka Prime. A long silence stretched between them. Then, a flicker of something in Cries' gaze. Trust. The Verkai exhaled slowly. Then we fight together. A sharp beep interrupted them. A holographic message flashed across Elias's wristband. Yelrin had sent the schematics. The vault's security was airtight, entry required a Concordium officer's DNA imprint. Only a handful of people had access. One of them was Overlord Clithos. Elias gritted his teeth. The bastard had been the one to deny treatment in the first place. He would enjoy making him regret that decision. He glanced at Cries, still barely clinging to consciousness. Time was running out. This wasn't just about getting the serum anymore. It was about proving that some things were worth fighting for. Elias stood, checking the charge on his rifle. Tomorrow, they were going to break into the most secure medical facility in the galaxy. And no one, not Clithos, not the Concordium, not their damn laws, was going to stop him. Chapter 2, The Heist. The air inside Varix 7's upper district was sterile, too clean, like the whole place had been scrubbed of anything remotely organic. The towering spires of the Galactic Medical Vault loomed ahead, their obsidian surfaces reflecting the neon sky. Inside those walls, behind layers of security, was the nanite serum, Cries' only chance. Elias adjusted the stolen security harness over his chest. The black armor plating was tight, designed for the thin-framed Concordium enforcers, not a broad-shouldered human. It would have to do. Beside him, Tessa Riggs, an ex-smuggler and expert slicer, flicked through holographic schematics on her wrist. You sure about this? She asked, not looking up. No. Elias flexed his fingers, keeping his nerves steady. But I don't see another option. Riggs smirked. That's the spirit. Cries, hidden in the shadows near their stolen transport, let out a low telepathic murmur. If this fails, we will not have another opportunity. Elias nodded. He wasn't planning to fail. The plan was simple in theory. Impersonate security, breach the inner lab, steal the serum, and get out before the enforcers caught on. In execution? A suicide mission. But he wasn't walking away. Phase 1, Infiltration. The first checkpoint was easy. Riggs's stolen security credentials got them through the biometric scan, disguising their heat signatures as Concordium officers. A pair of real enforcers glanced at them but didn't question their presence. Elias kept his head down and followed Riggs through the facility's sterile white corridors, the scent of antiseptic stinging his nostrils. At the next junction, a patrolling drone hovered past, its blue optics scanning the hallway. Riggs tapped a small device on her wrist, scrambling its detection systems just long enough for them to slip through an unmarked maintenance door. Inside, they crouched behind towering cryogenic tanks filled with strange, writhing organisms suspended in luminescent fluid. Rows of labeled genetic samples, cybernetic grafts, and advanced pharmaceuticals lined the lab's storage vaults. Elias exhaled. They were close. Phase 2, Breach. Riggs pulled out a compact data spike and jammed it into the main console. A holographic interface flared to life, streams of alien script scrolling across the screen. "Security's tight," she muttered, fingers flying across the interface. "This might take a minute." A voice interrupted them. "And you won't have that long." Elias turned. Overlord Clithos stood at the entrance, flanked by 2 Concordium guards, their plasma rifles trained on him. Clithos's dark robes swept the floor as he stepped forward, his reptilian features unreadable. "I had a feeling you'd try something this reckless, Voss." Clithos clasped his hands behind his back, gaze flicking to Riggs. "And you brought a criminal with you. How very human." Elias held his ground. "You could have just given me the damn serum. And waste resources on an expendable creature?" Clithos shook his head. "You humans let emotions cloud logic. That's why you'll never be more than a primitive species grasping at survival." Elias's blood boiled, but he kept his expression neutral. "So what now? You lecture me to death?" Clithos sighed, as if truly disappointed. "No. I offer you a choice." He gestured to the nearest cryostasis pod, where a small, silver vial lay suspended inside. "The nanite serum. So close. You surrender now," Clithos continued, "and your pet will be euthanized painlessly. No suffering. A merciful end." Elias's fists clenched. He saw Cry's pain in his mind, felt the Verkai's body deteriorating hour by hour. The Concordium bastard thought he was giving him an easy way out. "Or," Clithos added, "you resist. And I watch both of you die as fugitives." Elias glanced at Riggs. She barely shook her head. They weren't done hacking the system yet. He had seconds to decide. So he did the only thing that made sense. He shot first. Phase 3, escape. The blast hit one of the guards in the chest, sending him crashing into the console. Riggs dived for cover, yanking the data spike free as alarms screamed through the lab. Clithos didn't even flinch. The second guard fired, but Elias had already moved, rolling behind a containment tank. Glass shattered as plasma fire ripped through the lab, sending chemical vapors hissing into the air. "Voss!" Riggs tossed him a detonator charge. Elias caught it, set the fuse, and hurled it at the cryostasis pod. The explosion sent shockwaves through the room, shattering the casing. The nanite serum vial tumbled free. Elias dove, snatching it midair. "Got it," he shouted. Clithos's eyes darkened. "Kill them." The remaining guard advanced, but before he could fire, a blur of white fur and teeth slammed into him from the corridor. Cries. The Verkai was weak, but still lethal. He tore into the Enforcer's armor, sending him sprawling with a deep, guttural snarl. Elias sprinted toward the exit. "Move!" Riggs was already at the security door, hacking it open. Cries staggered forward, panting, barely standing. Elias caught him, pulling the massive alien's weight over his shoulder. "Stay with me, buddy." The blast doors slammed shut behind them as they entered the evacuation bay. Outside, the entire Concordium security force was descending. Phase 4, extraction. A stolen cargo ship waited at the edge of the landing bay. Riggs bolted for the cockpit, engines roaring to life. Elias helped Cries aboard, sealing the hatch behind them. "We're clear." Outside, Clithos stood on the tarmac, watching them with eerie calmness. He wasn't even ordering his men to fire. That made Elias uneasy. The ship rocketed into the sky, blasting through the atmosphere. Inside, Elias collapsed next to Cries, cradling the nanite serum in his gloved hands. "We did it," he murmured. But Cries didn't respond. His breathing was shallow, his pulse erratic. Elias didn't hesitate. He loaded the vial into the hypoinjector and pressed it against Cries' neck. The nanites flooded into his system, seeking out the parasitic barnacles with ruthless precision. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Cries convulsed, his body arching as the nanites engaged in battle deep within his cells. The Barnacles screamed, a soundless psychic wail that sent shivers down Elias's spine. Then, silence. Cries went still. Elias held his breath. Then, after a long, excruciating second, Cries exhaled. A slow, steady breath. The barnacles on his skin withered and died, their tendrils turning to dust. Elias let out a shaky laugh. "You're not dying today." Cries' eyes flickered open. "No. But we have made an enemy today." Elias looked out at the stars, his mind already on what came next. Clithos wouldn't let this go. They weren't just fugitives now. They were targets. Chapter 3, The Reckoning. The ship's engines hummed as they slipped into deep space, but the tension inside was anything but quiet. Elias sat beside Cries, watching the Verkai's scarred white fur rise and fall with each deep breath. The nanite serum was working, systematically destroying the barnacles that had been feeding on his body. The pain was still there, Cries' claws occasionally dug into the floor, but he was healing. Riggs paced near the cockpit, checking the NAV computer. "We've got a problem." Elias sighed. "Of course we do." Riggs turned, expression tight. "Concordium's tracking us." Clithos planted a signal on the serum vial. "We led them right to us." Elias cursed under his breath. "How much time do we have?" "Minutes." Cries shifted, his deep voice rough but steady. "Then we fight." Elias glanced at the exhausted alien. "You sure about that?" Cries bared his teeth. "They took my honor. They will not take my life." The comm panel flickered. "A transmission request." Elias exhaled and accepted. Clithos's cold, reptilian face appeared on screen. Behind him, a fleet of Concordium warships loomed against the void. "You had your chance, Voss," Clithos said, his voice like a knife's edge. "I am not a cruel being. I offered you mercy. You chose war." Elias leaned forward. "You chose to let an innocent die." "Innocent?" Clithos let out something resembling a chuckle. "The Verkai are little more than beasts. Do you mourn for the insects you step on, human?" Elias's fists clenched. "You really don't get it, do you? We don't abandon our own. That's the difference between us." Clithos's eyes darkened. "Then allow me to educate you." The transmission cut. Alarms blared as missiles streaked toward their ship. The dogfight. Riggs jerked the controls, sending the ship into a steep dive. Explosions erupted behind them, the shock waves rattling the hull. Elias scrambled to the gunner's chair. "Keep us steady." "Not exactly an option." Riggs shot back, weaving between enemy fire. Cries dragged himself upright, gripping the co-pilot's chair for balance. "Weapon status?" Elias primed the turret cannons. "Hot and ready." He fired, bright streaks of plasma lancing through the dark. One enemy fighter exploded on impact, debris scattering into the void. Two more took its place. Riggs pulled the ship into a barrel roll, narrowly dodging a salvo of energy bolts. "We can't outrun them forever." Cries' claws tapped against the console. "Then we do not run." Riggs glanced at him. "You got a plan, Wolfman?" Cries' glowing eyes fixed on the warships beyond. "Take us to them." Elias frowned. "You want to go toward the fleet?" Cries nodded. "They expect prey. We shall be predators." Riggs hesitated, then grinned. "All right, let's get stupid." She dived straight toward the largest battleship, engines roaring. The enemy fighters hesitated, caught off guard by the reckless maneuver. Elias locked onto their flagship's shield generator. "If we take that out, they lose their teeth," Riggs finished. Cries gripped the ship's controls, overriding safety protocols. The ion cannon charged, humming with deadly energy. Elias aimed. Fired. The ion blast punched through the flagship's defenses, shorting out their shield array in a shower of blue sparks. Cry's low growl rumbled through the cabin. Now we strike. The final stand. With the Concordium's shields down, the smaller fighters hesitated. Riggs took advantage, twisting through the chaos, forcing them into their own crossfire. Elias kept up the barrage, taking out ship after ship, until only the flagship remained. Then Clithos's voice crackled through the comms. Enough. A gravity well generator activated, dragging their ship to a sudden halt. Systems flickered, they were caught. Elias gritted his teeth. Damn it. Clithos's image reappeared. You put up a fight. Admirable. But it ends here. Cryx limped forward, standing beside Elias. You are wrong. Clithos's brow ridges furrowed. You should be dead. Cryx bared his razor-sharp fangs. And yet I live. Something shifted in the Verkai's stance. The nanites had done more than heal him, they had enhanced him. His wounds were gone. His strength had returned. Clithos saw it too. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. Cryx closed his eyes, focusing. A shockwave of raw, psychic force rippled through space. The gravity well collapsed. Their ship lurched free. Clithos's calm facade shattered. Impossible. Elias didn't let him finish. He fired the last torpedo. The flagship erupted in a chain of explosions, shockwaves tearing through its hull. The bridge ignited, engulfing Clithos's image in flames before the transmission cut to static. The Concordium fleet hesitated. Their leader was gone. Riggs didn't wait for them to recover. She punched the hyperdrive, and the stars stretched into infinity. They were free. Aftermath. The ship drifted in safe space, the adrenaline fading. Elias turned to Cryx. How do you feel? Cryx flexed his claws. Stronger. His eyes burned with new intensity. I can hear them. The Barnacles. The remnants of their hive mind. They are dying. Elias leaned back, exhaling. Good. Riggs stretched. So, what now? Cryx met Elias's gaze. We hunted today. Tomorrow, we will be hunted. Elias grinned. Let them come. Cryx's teeth gleamed. Let them fear.